We're going to rank all of Ash's Pokemon from the Indigo League based on competitive Gen 1's absurd game mechanics. Then at the end of the ranking, we're going to make a team based on Ash's highest ranked Pokemon to see what type of team he can viably run if he enters a Gen 1 OU tournament. Yes, that's right, we're going to rank these Pokemon based on how well they do in Gen 1 OU's metagame, which means we're factoring in every broken mechanic from speed-based crits to special being one stat to Hyper Beam not needing to recharge after a KO, all of it. And for this list, we're also going to assume Ash actually knows what he's doing and uses actually viable sets for competitive RBY with all of his Pokemon. So we aren't going to rank these Pokemon based on the sets they have in the anime. Alright, starting with the bottom ranked Mons, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. We ain't using not fully evolves in a Pokemon tournament, especially with a generation without Eviolite. So Bulbasaur, Squirtle, and Pikachu, goodbye. I'm sorry Pikachu, but you won't have Light Ball for another 2 generations. Starting out our D tiers is Ash's very own Butterfree, which evolved all the way from the Caterpie he caught in episode 3 of the anime. Hey, we all remember the episode Bye Bye Butterfree where Ash's Butterfree leaves him to be with the other Butterfree. Honestly, he did Ash a favor because Ash would have definitely said bye bye to Butterfree the minute he brings it into an OU match. Look, I never expect much from Butterfree. It's the first of the early game bug types that would become a staple along with the early game birds and rodents. You get to evolve it to its final stages at level 10, but the trade-off is that it becomes way less useful the further you get into the game. And even though Butterfree is the type that is actually super effective against the best type in Gen 1, Psychic, it doesn't actually have any bug stab. And even if it did, it's not going to hurt anyone in OU except for maybe Exeggutor with its awful base 45 attack stat. Remember, bug type moves are all physical in this gen. Butterfree's access to both Sleep Powder and Stun Spore isn't very useful when it can't outspeed anything anyway. It's outclassed by every other sleeper in the bottom tier that it's in, PU, where nobody uses it. Honestly, when Ash traded his Butterfree away for the Raticate, he shouldn't have traded it back. Raticate is way more useful because it at least has a niche of possessing both Super Fang and Hyper Beam. Next in our D tiers, we have Pidgeot, who evolved from Ash's Pidgeotto that he caught also in episode 3. Wow. I place Pidgeot above Butterfree even if they are in the same tier technically, because Pidgeot would definitely be more useful than Butterfree due to actually being able to do something to their opponent with Stab Hyper Beam. We all remember the awesome episode where Ash's Pidgeotto evolves into Pidgeot and beats the Fearow that used to be the Spearow that Ash pissed off all the way back in the first episode. It was a cathartic episode that gave one of Ash's most beloved Pokemon an arc. But yeah, sorry to say, ain't nobody using Pidgeot over Fearow, even in the lower tiers of RBY. And even in the higher tiers like UU, both of them are outclassed by Dodrio anyways. I guess that's what happens when you make 3 Pokemon of the same type in the same generation. Fearow's access to Dropek makes a huge difference when you're deciding between the two, as Fearow at least has a reliable flying stab, whereas Pidgeot has to use Sky Attack, which is a 2-turn move. And they have nearly identical sets, but Fearow also has higher attack and speed. Alright, now we'll get to the C tier. Starting us off, we have Primeape. And look, I know Ash ended up giving away his Primeape in the one episode he used him to win that fighting type Pokemon tournament, but we are counting every Pokemon Ash has ever had, so it will still go on this list. Anyways, Primeape is yet another Pokemon that is destroyed by the Psychic type, which is a shame because Primeape is a fighting type and would be good versus the other dominant type in RBYOU, Normal. It's got Fighting Stab accompanied with a good base speed stat of 95, which in Gen 1 means it has a 18.85% chance to crit, which is definitely worth considering. But there's a reason why even Machamp isn't used that often in OU. Primeape at least has a role in NU despite being awful even in the lower tier of PU. Because in NU, it apparently can at least Rock Slide Moltres as well as hit Clefable with a fighting move. Now, if only it got a chance to actually use those fighting moves in OU, because if Ash brought Primeape to an OU match, he either has to sacrifice Primeape to just get bodied by the Psychic type, or it would be forced to switch out by the Psychic type, and now his opponent gets to hit something else on the switch with a Psychic move. Next in our C tier, we have Muck. Muck in the anime is famous for stopping that Chad Bellsprout from the Indigo League by simply engulfing it. Unfortunately, Muck in competitive RBY isn't that useful, at least not in OU. As we've said many times in this video and on this channel, Psychic types rule the roost, and Muck is a poison type, so it'll just get vaporized on the switch in by Alakazam, Jinx, Exeggutor, etc. Muck's HP stat may be pretty good, but its special is horrendous. Wait, that's weird. I always remember this thing having good special defense. Oh wait, that's right, special was only one stat, so Muck's awful base 65 special attack is also its special defense in Gen 1. It didn't get its good special defense stat until Gen 2. Muck in RBY also appears to be in PU, the worst tier in Smogon and the only one that is named after a pun. Oh, how appropriate for Muck, considering that was its whole thing in the episode where Ash catches it. You know what's funny? In NU, Muck is also dominated by a certain ghost Pokemon. Nope, not that one. Nope, not even that one. Even smaller. There we go. Ghastly. Yes, that's right. Ghastly has a special of 100, which means it has both a special attack and special defense of 100, so higher than Muck's. But at least Muck can explode on everyone in this tier besides Ghastly. Now you may be asking why Muck is above Primeape in C tier. Well, honestly, they're both pretty bad in the tiers that they're in, but Muck having the nuclear option and also having elemental coverage is where I deem it more useful than just being a weaker but faster Machamp. Look, both of these Pokemon are getting bodied by Psychic types, but at least Muck has a higher chance of killing something with Explosion. Alright, I know there's an elephant in this room, or should I say, flying orange lizard. I know a lot of you must be thinking, where are we putting Ash's ace Pokemon? You know who I'm talking about? No, not him. Charizard, of course. Well, here's your answer. Charizard is starting off our B tier. Congratulations, Charizard, you are officially mid. In Gen 1 OU, Charizard doesn't do anything. If Ash wants a fire flying type to actually do something in OU, he is way better off using Moltres if he can get one. Unfortunately, for Charizard, this is Gen 1 and not Gen 3, where it has its Blaze ability to put its firepower above Moltres given the right circumstance. Now, it is at least faster than Moltres, but remember this is RBY. Moltres' special defense is also its special attack, which is 125, while Zard sits at a mediocre base 85. Charizard gets destroyed by staples Starmie, Zapdos, Cloyster, Slowbro, and Rhydon, and other Gen 1 OU Pokemon. Luckily, it does have a Swords Dance niche in UU, and this niche, as well as being an entire tier above Primeape and Muck in NU, is what puts him above them, along with an immunity to Earthquake, and also at least not being utterly destroyed by the strongest type in Gen 1. Though to be fair, Psychic types are so strong that Charizard isn't going to be taking too many hits repeatedly. If Ash were to bring Charizard to OU, it can at least be more useful than Primeape and Muck if it gets a chance to set up its Swords Dance, since it possesses Hyper Beam, Slash, and Earthquake. However, the usefulness of this is still quite unlikely considering how common paralysis is in OU, which is also something that would end up crippling Primeape. Charizard's base speed is also 100, which gives it a higher critical hit chance than Primeape, along with having Slash, which is pretty nasty on top of the other good moves it has that will do a lot of damage if it actually does get a chance to set up. But we must reiterate, that is a big if, and even if it does set up Swords Dance, it might get Thunder Waved anyway, which means it's even less likely to go first. But hey, at least Charizard isn't terrible relative to the rest of Ash's Pokemon. Alright, this next one has an asterisk to it, so I'll leave it up to you, the viewer, on whether or not it counts as Ash's Pokemon, since Ash technically didn't catch this Pokemon and put it in a Pokeball, even though he did plan to use it in his battle versus Sabrina. But if it does count as Ash's Pokemon, then Haunter would be next in the B tier, and would be a better choice than Charizard to bring to a Gen 1 OU tournament match. Now wait, you might say, this Pokemon isn't even fully evolved. How is it more useful than the mighty Charizard? Well, it's simple really. It has Hypnosis, Great Special, and Great Speed. So basically, if Ash were to bring Haunter to a Gen 1 OU match, it would at least be a miniature Gengar, and that is more useful than Charizard, funnily enough. Haunter is also actually officially UU, which is also higher than Zard's usage tier in NU. And just like Muck, Haunter also possesses Explosion. So basically, the way we see it, Haunter and Charizard both will have trouble hitting the field, because Haunter is so frail that it'll just get destroyed on switching by basically anything, especially Psychic types. But at least if they both get a chance to hit the field, Haunter has more useful utility with Hypnosis and Explosion. Alright, now we get into the A tiers of Ash's Pokemon. And next up, we have Kingler. Now, Kingler is technically the same tier as Charizard, but remember when I said Charizard had a niche in UU because of its Swords Dance set? Well, Kingler has a niche in OU for the same reason. Kingler is the strongest Swords Dance user, literally, because it has the highest attack stat out of any Pokemon that can also learn Swords Dance. Thanks to Kingler's absurdly high attack stat, Kingler has a guaranteed chance to one-hit KO chance cutscene after a Swords Dance, and nothing else is going to want to switch into Kingler. The only Pokemon in OU that resists its Hyper Beam are the Rock types, but they're both going to get washed by Kingler's Crab Hammer, despite Kingler having Abysmal Special due to their 4x weakness to water. However, that awful special makes Kingler susceptible to the special users in OU, especially the Psychics. This, along with not having the best speed, is the reason why it's only niche in OU. But with that niche, if the opponent's team towards the end of the battle is, let's say, paralyzed from the omnipresent body slams and thunder waves being thrown around, Kingler can come in, Swords Dance up, and destroy the entire team. So in a sense, Kingler is a win condition, and that's why we have ranked it in the A tier and above all the other previously mentioned Pokemon. Next, after Kingler, to round out our A tier, we have a Pokemon who is actually UUBL or banned from UU, but doesn't have enough usage to be considered OU. I am, of course, talking about Lapras. And yes, I'm counting the Orange Islands even though it is after the Indigo League, because it's still a Gen 1 arc and it's still canon to the anime series, as Pokemon from this arc return later in the series. Okay, anyways, Lapras has a great move pool with an amazing HP stat, a good special stat, and a decent attack stat. Lapras's main niche in OU is that it's a bulky Pokemon that has access to both Blizzard and Sing. And we all know how busted Sleep is in Gen 1, since it literally makes you spend a turn to wake up. Also, Blizzard in Gen 1 is 90% accurate, while also having the base power of 120, which is amazing. Blizzard destroys one of the tier staples, Exeggutor, as well. And in addition to this, Lapras also has both Body Slam and Hyper Beam, allowing it to finish off its usual checks and counters like Chansey if it ever catches Chansey at low health. And if Ash were to bring Lapras to OU, he'd at least be able to use it against Snorlax and Tauros, two of the best Pokemon in the tier, as Tauros can't one-hit KO it from full health even with a crit, and Body Slam doesn't do that much damage to Lapras. And since Lapras can fit on more OU teams than Kingler, this is why we have put Lapras above Kingler in the A tier. All right, now we're finally here. The S tiers, baby. The cream of the crop, and the only officially OU Pokemon Ash actually possesses. Kicking things off, we have, of course, Ash's Snorlax, famous in the anime for somehow having access to 6 attacks instead of the standard 4. Now, yeah, it's not going to be able to do that in OU because that'd be cheating, but nonetheless, Snorlax is still one of the best Pokemon in Gen 1 OU, having a monstrous base HP stat of 160, even being higher than Lapras's amazing 130 HP stat. And not only is it tanky, but it has access and stab to the coveted Body Slam and Hyper Beam combination, which are the moves that absolutely need to be played around in every Gen 1 tier. And on top of all of that, it even has access to stab self-destruct for some reason. Now, it may not be able to outspeed anything, but it can tank hits from many of the other OU Pokemon and fire back with a Body Slam or Hyper Beam off of its great attack stat. All of the Psychic types have scared away the fighting types, so it doesn't even have to worry about being hit super effectively most of the time. Snorlax is an OU staple and one of the tier's big 4, and that is what makes it S tier among Ash's Pokemon. However, with all that being said, there is one more of Ash's Pokemon that ranks above all the rest, and for some reason, Ash has 30 of them. We have talked about Gen 1 Tauros on this channel many times, but it can't be overstated how much of an impact RBY Tauros has on OU. Gen 1 Tauros is the best Pokemon in RBY that isn't Mewtwo or Mew. It abuses almost every broken mechanic in RBY with its high critical hit rate due to its speed and access to both stab, body slam, and of course, the Hyper Beam that doesn't need to recharge upon getting a KO. Tauros runs over every single mon in the tier if left unchecked. The only mons that don't take a large chunk from Tauros' stab moves are bulky Pokemon like Slowbro and Lapras, but even those Pokemon don't want to take repeated hits, and of course, Rhydon. But for some reason, Tauros gets blizzards, so even Rhydon gets hit super effectively by it. Fancy that. Tauros can fish for paralysis and crits with Body Slam repeatedly, and then finish them off easily with Hyper Beam. And then when it kills a Pokemon, it gets to go again, and the cycle repeats itself. And because a lot of the Gen 1 OU game is based upon how well you can play around Tauros, Tauros is the face of Gen 1 OU, and by far Ash's best Pokemon if Ash were ever to compete in a Gen 1 OU tournament. Alright, and that's the end of our ranking, but just like we said in the beginning, now we're actually going to see what Ash's RBY OU team would look like. Alright, so we actually have 2 teams to account for. So our team is Tauros, Snorlax, Lapras, Kingler, Charizard, and Muk, or Tauros, Snorlax, Lapras, Kingler, Zard, and Haunter, if you count Haunter as his Pokemon. If you allow Haunter, then Haunter is a better version of the team instead of Muk. Hey, would you look at that? Charizard made the cut for the team. Enjoy being death fodder with Muk for when Ash doesn't want Tauros or Snorlax getting damaged. So essentially, Ash has a bad hyper offense team with 2 Swords Dance users and no psychic protection, but at least his team has a strategy. Ash's only chance of winning a tournament OU set is that he has to full send into offense, sacrificing things so that he can destroy his opponent without his opponent knowing what's going on, as the biggest weakness of both of these teams is that they have 0 defense against the psychics because Ash doesn't have a psychic type. And yeah, Snorlax's HP is good, but its special is pretty bad in this gen, so even Snorlax doesn't want to switch into a psychic attack repeatedly. And with that being said, his best strategy to winning an RBY OU match is basically trying to sleep something with Haunter if you allow it, or Lapras's Sing, and maybe try to go for a freeze from Lapras's Blizzard, as this team really needs to get that momentum going. Then you sacrifice things like Charizard or something so that your Snorlax, Tauros, and Kingler get in for free, and then they can start bulldozing the other team. And then when the team is crippled or weakened, then Kingler can clean up or something. Let us know in the comments what you think about our ranking and what you think Ash's team would be if he brought it to a Gen 1 OU tournament. And if you liked the video and you want to see more, be sure to subscribe to False Swipe Gaming for more weekly Pokemon content. And thank you so much to our patrons for continued support of our videos, and thank you to everyone else watching as well. And follow my crew on these social media platforms. And that's all I got. See you next time, everyone.